Alright, Mo Fishies, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Right now I got something a little different, a little special for you. I just got back from the U Brunch. I have about 3 hours before lines in on the afternoon session of day one. But at the U, the Bass University Brunch, Jensen, his YouTube channel is Flukemaster. Check him out. He gave a little presentation on just a little seminar, if you will, on where and how to find fish in a new body of water and any body of water. It was pretty sweet. So I recorded the whole thing. He wore my mic for me so you guys, so you Mo Fishies could hear better. So that's what I'm gonna run right now for this video. So enjoy. Hopefully you learned something. This is Jensen.
With Mr. Jensen, our second Bass U Brunch seminar, and he's gonna talk about something, he's really good at. You fished all over the country. He's fished so many places, different species of bass, different water types, vegetation, rock, man-made, natural structure, you name it. He's really good at it. He's got a good system down on how to figure out how to find winning fish as fast as possible. So therefore, of course, that's your topic today. So you guys know him as Flukemaster on YouTube, Instagram, and all that good stuff. So let's give it up for the Flukemaster, Jensen, who's got...
I can't tell you how many times I've found the winning fish and watched somebody else catch them. So we can definitely
teach them how to play defense.
Exactly. Oh, thanks, Drew. I appreciate it. I'll tell you guys, if you weren't keeping notes when Christine was giving her seminar, you crazy, because she gave some juice. I mean, absolute juice. I'm not super experienced with river fishing. I do shoal bass down in Georgia, and they're in the shoals. I mean, they're always in the shoals. And so, but for me, what I want to talk about when Drew asked me about the seminars, I want to talk about what changed my whole entire career in bass fishing. And I've got 35 years of experience bass fishing. And when I was in high school, I was voted the student most likely to run to the border. Because even at 17 years old, I was driving everywhere. I went to Florida. I'd go down there Florida fishing by myself. I'd go to North Georgia, sleep in my car, trout fish. I was always gone and always driving somewhere. So I love to travel and fish. And I fished all over the country. But one of the things that changed my life and made me to where can't remember the last time I blanked on a day was I stopped focusing on the bait. I stopped focusing on how to catch them. I stopped focusing on the things that the industry wants you to focus on because you spend more money on it. I started focusing on where are the fish, why are they there, and basically how to find them. I spent 4 years solid strictly focused, learning and studying and reading everything I could and everything else on how to find them. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Now, when I do my seminars, I want a discussion. If you guys have a question while I'm doing it, raise your hand, ask a question. I don't have a problem stopping to answer that question because you'll forget the question, or even if it's a stupid question, ask it. But I don't want you to forget the question by the time we're done. So be sure you ask. Now, first thing I want to talk about are your basics, seasonal patterns. Okay, think about where you are and what you're doing, but think about seasonal patterns. Are they pre-spawn, are they spawn, or are they post-spawn? And what do they do during that period of time? Pre-spawn starts when your water temperature starts to warm up, when your nighttime temperatures are warmer than your water temperature, is when your water really starts to warm up. And bass, it doesn't matter if it's 32 degrees, it doesn't matter if it's 70 degrees up down in Florida. Once they start to warm up and the bass are like, whoa, it's time to go make babies. And they start to move, okay? And so that's kind of, I know people talk about water temperature and stuff like that. It's just a warming trend is all it is. And sometimes in January, especially in the South, we get that 10-day period where it's warmer and they perk up and they go shallow real quick and then it gets cold again and they drop right back down into their holes. But I'm talking about when they start moving to go pre-spawn. Now, one of the misconceptions for pre-spawn, and I'm gonna try to skim past this as fast as I can. One of the misconceptions is if it gets cold, they back out. If they've started to move towards their spawning areas and it gets cold or the weather gets bad, they just stop, they pause. They go to an area, they pause, they may go a little bit deeper and stuff like that, but they don't go right back out to the winter holes 99 times out of 100. They'll just pause on an area, and that's when you hear about people fishing transitions and things like that. But seasonal patterns, so you got pre-spawn. Spawn happens for largemouth, it happens in the low 60s, sometimes low 50s. Smallmouth starts a little colder than that. Spotted bass starts a little colder than that, somewhere in the 50s. And then just study where they like to spawn. Each of those are a little bit different. Some like current, some don't. And then post-spawn, they move back out. They get on the offshore cover and offshore structure and stuff like that. But one of the things I wanted to make sure I touched on after seasonal patterns is food. Okay, a bass has got to eat to survive. And it's not going to go far from its food source. It likes to stay in the kitchen. Largemouth bass are lazier than smallmouth, and won't move as far, but they do not go far from their food. And so the biggest thing I learned when I was going through all this is I wanted to learn everything I could about each individual food source of the main lakes that I'm fishing. So most of my lakes are shad lakes or blueback herring lakes. I learned everything I could about them. Up here, I learned everything I could about crawfish and about whatever those little bitty minnows are that swim in these rivers. I don't even know what they're called, but I sat there and I watched them for a couple of hours the other day, just trying to learn what they're doing and where they like to be. And when you're on a body of water, one of the first things I always do, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold on, let me open up my notes. It's not what I want to go over. Okay, map study and lake breakdown. Before you even go to a lake, how much time do you spend online doing research?
I spend a lot less time than most people.
Yeah. Does Christine spend a lot of time? I know she watches a lot of videos, but
yeah. I just don't like to spend too much time because then I get a preconceived notion of what to expect.
Yep. Now what I do, I spend a lot of time map study is what I do. I want to know everything I can about that body of water. When I'm watching videos, all I want to see is water clarity and what type of danger and structure and stuff like that is around. I don't look at videos to try to figure out how these people are catching fish. I want to know what the water clarity is, so when I show up, I don't have too much tackle. Now, map study, I'm looking for, depending on the season, but I'm looking for offshore structure, points, humps. Does it have all of that? Does it have deep bends in the river? And I'm spending hours and hours looking at maps. What's cool about kayak fishing, especially a bona fide, is the dry pod comes out of the boat and you can have a battery in there and have your fish finder and everything else. Well, I have a stand in my office that I put on my desk that holds that box, and I put it right down and I turn that sucker on and I have my computer and my fish finder right there, and I go through and I look at my mapping and I mark my waypoints and I mark little highlighted places, and I spend a lot of time with my fish finder on my desk while I'm doing all that, marking those waypoints. So map study is critical. When you're learning all this, learn what a point is. Learn what parts of the point the bass like to hang on certain times of the year. Most of the time they want to be on the steep side, not so much the flat side. There's a lot of different things that you want to do want to focus on that. But humps, creek channels, and flats. Okay, so when I first get to a lake, I don't like to get there early in the morning when it's dark. When I first get there, I want to get there when it's daylight, ideally. I look for water clarity. I go to the end of the boat ramp and I look and I say, what's the water clarity? I can only hold so much tackle in my kayak. He holds less tackle than I've ever seen in my life. You got nothing in your boat last two tournaments I've seen. And so I tend to have a lot of tackle, but I want to be able to have the right stuff. So I have extra boxes in my truck that are empty, and I'll load them full of tackle according to what the water clarity is. Then I get out on the water and I want to see the temperature. And I take my fish finder and I'm looking, and I go over deep water and I'm looking for pods of bait fish. So the third thing I'm looking for is I'm looking for the depth, the average depth of where those pods of bait fish are. Okay? And typically, and a lot of pros say this, and I've seen it times where it is and times where it isn't, but typically the bait is 2 times deeper than the water clarity, than how deep you can see. but there's times when it's not. So I just go over and I scan and I try to find the median depth that these baits are or the bait is at, and then I go to points and humps and I fish that depth on that hard cover. And how many people deer hunt? Okay, do you stand out in the middle of the field sometimes to shoot deer? No, you try to find that ambush spot. And so a bass will find an ambush spot where these bait fish who are at that depth will swim by them, and all they have to do is go out and get them. So I'm looking for humps that have it, and then on those humps I'm looking for brush piles or stumps or big rocks or things like that. Crap, what happened to my notes? Okay. So, all right, so the next thing is I'm on the water and I want to choose a zone. Okay, and this gets into pre-fishing, and pre-fishing fast is the biggest thing. And Christine covered it really well. You're not trying to catch fish. You're just trying to locate them. Okay, and so the first thing I do is I narrow it down to 3 key zones. I pick a deep area to fish. So a deep point or a deep hump or something like that that's a little bit below those bait fish. I pick a mid area to fish that looks good in that section of the lake that I choose, and I pick a shallow area that's got shallow cover, and I fish all 3 of them. And I'll fish it in a large I'll fish it in a large area of the creek, and I'll go and I'll move a couple miles. I'll go to another boat ramp and I'll do the same thing. And that's me trying to figure out whether the fish are shallow, deep, or mid, okay? And I'm just gonna cover that area and do it really fast. I don't necessarily need to catch the fish. I wanna see them following my bait, especially with forward-facing sonar these days, but I used to do it with just regular side scan and down imaging. You throw a big crankbait and crank it in, and they'll follow you all the way up underneath your boat. And you look down and you go, oh crap, there's a fish all of a sudden there, and I just brought my bait up there. I had a bass follow it all the way back to the boat, or some type of predatory fish. So I'm digging, I'm looking in that stuff, and then when you get shallow, you're looking for grass and you're looking for your brush and wood and rocks or whatever else they're holding on, and always keeping a mental note about where these fish are coming from. This is normally a 3-hour or 2.5-hour seminar, guys, so I'm trying to break it all the way down. And the biggest thing is to cover water fast. And you're looking for a follow, you're looking for a blow up, you're looking for something that just lets you know the fish are there. What are some of the other things that we look for without fish finders to locate where there's life and where there's fish? Birds, especially on this river. I've spent a lot of time looking at birds and finding areas that you can say. So birds is one. What's another thing?
I look for slack water.
Yep. I tend to look in slack water a lot to see if there's any ticks, any little bait fish coming up. It doesn't have to be much. I'll tell you a story. I was on Clarks Hill Lake years ago, and it was in October, and they were supposed to be in the back of the creeks, and I went to the back of this great creek that's always good. Slick, calm water, and I fished there for 3 hours and didn't get a single bite. And then the light bulb went off, and I looked around, and I was like, there is nothing going on back here. No ticks on the surface, no bugs on the surface, no life at all back in this creek. I said, I'm out of here. And I went to the mouth of the creek and grabbed a lipless crankbait and pulled around on a point and and there was bait fish over top of the point and everything else. The wind was blowing really hard, and I threw up there, and I caught one after the other, just because I noticed that where I was, there was no life. And that really is the key. If there's no bait, there's not going to be any bass. There might be, try not to make this too confusing. So there can be bait without bass, but there will never be bass without bait, if that makes sense. Okay? And so I've never been in an area where there was not food and there be bass there. There's always some type of a food. There's a ton of crawfish on this river. Holy cow, there's a ton of crawfish. And I can see why the smallies are healthy. But let's see.
Gee, listening too.
Yes, listening.
Fishing pads or something?
Yep, listening to pads. You go on Gunnersville, you get the mats and stuff. You pull up into a mat and you hear those bluegill popping and eating bugs off those mats. Sounds like popcorn popping is what it does. And if they're not there, the bass aren't there. You know, you can punch and flip and frog that mat until you're blue in the face and you still will not get blown up. But if you pull up to a mat and you can hear it and it's singing, start flipping and punching around the outside edges first and then work your way into the holes. And there will be bass somewhere in that area. And it'll be a school of fish too, especially on Guntersville. These schools tend to move around under these mats. Or anything like, any place that has mats like that. So let's see, I've already covered that one. Now we get into baits. You've located the fish, you've got a few bites. Okay, you're burning water, and it's time to start catching. Then you try to figure out how they're biting. You know, if you located them and one followed you to the boat, maybe they don't want something moving, maybe they want something flipping. But that's when you start focusing on the baits. You don't focus on the baits when you're not catching fish or you're not seeing fish. You focus on where the fish are and what you're doing. Okay, how many times this week have we gone out and we just fished an area and just didn't get a single nothing, you know, and he's like, oh crap, I'm throwing the wrong bait. It may not have been. It may have been that the fish just weren't there, you know. Let's see, and then it boils down to finding a pattern. Okay, are they on isolated cover? Am I getting them to pull off of wood, off of rock, or out of grass? And that's when you start working that part of. But if you can't catch a fish if it's not there, so the first thing you do is you gotta find them. You gotta really spend a lot of time. And my biggest suggestion, if you guys want to get from where you are now to raise your level of ability to catch fish, is focus the next couple, 2 or 3 years on finding fish. And then fish your confidence baits. You know, like Christine said, you can't beat a confidence bait. I don't care what part of the country you're in. If you've got 2 or 3 confidence baits, except for a wacky rig. I hate fishing a wacky rig. But if you got confidence baits, fish those before you fish anything else. Okay, I don't care if the local at the boat ramp says, or at the tackle shop says, spinnerbaits never work around here. If that's your confidence bait, throw your confidence bait. You know, and you'll catch fish. Let's see, and I didn't even cover electronics because that's really not that big of a deal for me. I love forward-facing sonar. I love my fish finders, and I use them like there's no tomorrow when I'm offshore. But dude, again, you spend most of your time it's just trying to gain the knowledge of the lake that you're on, or the bait fish that are on the lakes that you're on. Trying to think of anything else. I covered everything as fast as I could, but any questions? Anybody? Oh, before I end, you guys know about TKS? Who does not know about the Team Kayak Series? Okay, so our TKS tournament here on Susquehanna is next Saturday and Sunday. And if you haven't fished our series yet, it's only $100 a person. So yeah, it's a team of 2. And the cool thing about our tournament is it's 10 fish over a 2-day period. So if you guys wanted to come jump in our last tournament of the season, one of the things we did, we weren't going to do the Susquehanna, and a couple of people talked us into it, and it's basically, this is just to gauge the interest up here, because ultimately we want to have 2 divisions, a northern division and a southern division. I don't want people to travel all over the country to fish my series. I want to have them pretty close, but if we have a lot of people show up for this tournament and fish it, then we'll have more up here. And
different boundaries too. So.
Yeah, and there's different boundaries too. We go further south, all the way to Harrisburg on our tournament. So, and we'll cover all that in the captain's meeting. But anyway, you know, biggest thing is just stick around, come back next weekend and fish our tournament. And like I said, it's a team series. You can talk to each other on the phone. You can work it. You know, you can work together and go catch 10 good ones. So, but that's it. That's all I got. Any more credit?
There's some very good reviews about his.
Oh, we have a blast.
If anybody's asking, I mean,
Yep.
I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, we have so much fun. It's cool to hear the stories of the guys working together, and how the guys that are doing the best this year are the guys that actually communicate all the time, are always trying to help each other out. The ones that aren't helping each other out, they're not sitting at the top of the Angler of the Year race right now. So our goal is not to make money doing this. I don't make a dime off a Team Kayak Series. My goal is just to have you guys out there fishing a team series that doesn't exist, you know, or that didn't exist before we started, and have a lot of fun. It's and one of the cool things I like to talk about is I have fun. If you accidentally break a rule and you know something stupid, you know, we've all done dumb things and didn't realize we broke a rule till we did, and we self-report. You know, I DQ'd myself with a video from a national win, okay, and didn't realize I had broke a rule. But we've all done it. But I like fun rewards for being stupid. Let's just put it that way. I reward you. I'm not going to DQ you unless you're cheating. But the fun thing is we had some guys that accidentally let a buddy fish with them, and you're not allowed to fish with somebody who's not a competitor during the official practice period, and they did and self-reported. So I just said, okay, go sit in your Airbnb or be off the water for 4 hours the first day, and I want to have a picture put on Tourney X every hour of you doing something or whatever. They had so much fun with those pictures. We laughed and laughed. And then the fourth one was them at the boat ramp, and I said, all right, go fishing. And they lost 4 hours, but you've got 2 days to catch your 10 fish limit, so it didn't. They drove all the way from Connecticut out to Georgia or South Carolina. I wasn't going to send them home after spending that kind of money. So that's the biggest thing with me is I get a little creative. So, or if you lose your identifier, you're going to have a smile, a frowny face somewhere in your picture. I promise you that. So anyway, thanks guys. I appreciate it. Y'all go out, catch some good fish. And pray for me because I'm not doing good this week.
If you guys want more food, I think there's...
Yeah.
Question about you.
Yeah.
You opened up a northern division and a southern division. Me and my buddy, we travel all over.
Oh yeah.
If we were primarily, both of us are Alabama, but if we happened to be up here and you had a northern one,
Oh, yeah.
could we fish it?
Oh yeah. For sure.
You look for us next year because we're retired. We ain't got shit else to do.
Hey, don't tell nobody you're retired. They'll find something for you to do.